John Cowan joining me on the program. John, welcome to the Time Loop.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not just my parents that haunt me when I look in the mirror. I see my grandfather
Oh,
as well,
yes.
glowering at me under his bushy eyebrows. And it used to strike me when I was first became a parent and you got young children, and I'm told it's almost like a universal experience. You open your mouth to talk to your children, and out comes your mother. Were you born in a tent or something? Go back and close that nicely.
Yeah.
No, sit up. Use your fork nicely. All these little phrases. It was like we were recording them all through our childhood, and then when we become parents ourselves, we push the play button and out they come again.
Yeah.
So it makes you think: are you doomed to be like your parents? Is it inevitable? I do find myself sometimes saying things like my parents would, and genetics makes it inevitable that it's going to be partially true.
Yeah.
Fruit doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
And people that have known my parents have said that I'm like my dad, and I know my kids have had that label leveled at them too, that they're
Yeah.
like me. And it can be a bit scary, but I don't know if my kids are going to be very grateful for the genetic legacy I've left them. But one thing I do know is that I'm actually quite grateful for the heritage I have from my parents.
Okay.
Not so much the hay fever and weak ankles.
Yeah.
I could have passed up on them, but I know that I got, for instance, my enjoyment of people.
Hmm.
I'm a fairly sociable person, and I don't know whether that's genetic or the example of my parents who always had people around the house and extras for dinner, and so that was definitely something that either I have in my veins or it rubbed off on me during my upbringing.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm grateful for that heritage. And there's other certain traits and things that it would be immodest of me to mention them, even though I'm trying to pay credit to my parents. I'm glad that I got those things from my mum and dad. And I interview a lot of successful people on the radio, on my radio program, and almost invariably they'll pass credit back to their parents
Hmm.
because of what they did or what they inherited from them, setting them up to succeed. They're grateful. But I was wanting to talk this morning to people that might not be so grateful when they're thinking of their parents.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have a great relationship growing up, or they don't have a good relationship now.
Mm.
Maybe those parents were inattentive or cruel or even abusive, and maybe they had addictions or traits that you detested, and there's a lurking in your mind: am I doomed to be like my parents? And you live your life in reaction.
Yeah.
Everything that my parents were, I am going determined not to be like that. But the first thing you need to hear is you are not your parents.
Mm.
No one is writing the script of your life except you. I mean, your parents had a big part in writing the first couple of chapters
Yeah.
of the story of your life, but the rest of the chapters, from here on in especially, are blank pages for you to write as you will. Now, so you're not your parents. Genetic influences, by the way it works is that, yes, you do get half your genes from your mum and half your genes from your father. Excuse me, I mentioned hay fever before. I think I've got a sneeze coming. That sneeze is going to be lurking in the back of this interview for the rest of the time we're talking together. The sneeze that is just building up and then
Welcome to
fading away
spring.
again.
Yeah.
It adds a certain degree of tension to an interview, but when it happens, you'll know.
Bless you in
Uh,
advance, John.
in advance,
Yeah.
such a powerful blessing. I think it's faded away.
Okay,
That's
there we go.
wonderful. Thank you. Well, I can't remember what I was saying. Yes, you get half your genes from your mum and half your genes from your dad, but only half of those genes were ones, around about half, were ones that they were using themselves. The
Yeah.
other half probably came down from grandparents or great grandparents as well. So, no way are you just going to be a carbon copy of your parents or
Hmm.
even a blend of the two. There's other genes that was lurking there in the background that have been stirred into the mix and passed on to you. So, that's the way that genes work. But they do contribute building blocks to your life. But you are not doomed by your genetic heritage. Sometimes you get a statistic inclination to be an alcoholic, for instance,
Yep.
or to have mental health problems or something. Very often, though, this is descriptive, but not prescriptive. You might have come from a long line of criminals, and perhaps statistically you're likely to be a criminal, but that's descriptive, but not prescriptive. You don't have to follow that script.
Yeah.
Genes are not necessarily your destiny. You might have your mother's temper, but that's an inclination, a character flaw. But if you're aware of it, then you can start to conquer that and control it. You might be aware of your family's history of addictions. Well, that may be a weakness that you have to be aware of and steer a course that will mean that that doesn't become troublesome in your own life. Genes and upbringing tilt you in a certain directions, but they're not usually irresistible forces. So I want you to be assured, your life hasn't been written for you. You can still take control of that pen and write your own chapters of your life.
Yeah. And hey, we can pick and choose to an extent. And hey, maybe that confronting image in the mirror that we talked about beforehand, when we find ourselves doing things that our parents used to do, and particularly if there's an unpleasant memory associated with this, when we find ourselves repeating some of the flaws, some of the things that we disliked about our parents, and some of the perhaps even the abuse and brokenness from our relationships with our parents, this can be a good springboard of saying, no, not me, it stops here, I don't have to repeat the same mistakes, right?
That's right. And you can actually, as well as choosing that, you can actually choose the relationship that you have going forward with your parents.
Okay.
Some people feel like to break that almost curse over themselves, they have to break their relationship with their parents, be remaining either physically or emotionally distant from your parents.
Yeah.
If you learn good boundary skills, then very often that you can have a good, ongoing and loving relationship with your parents, even if their nature is to be controlling or angry. You can actually still be safe in their presence if you develop the right skills. And one thing which I think is important for your own well-being, and especially to do your own parenting well, and that is shift the furniture around in your heart to forgive them.
Wow.
Even if your parents are now dead, maybe you need to stand by their graveside and just in your own mind go through the things that you can be grateful for, the way that they were probably trying their best, even though they messed things up in some way, and forgiving them for things that are sticking points in your heart still. That can be very powerful. And if they're still alive, you might be able to find a way to be able to do that. Maybe that needs to be spoken out loud to them. Maybe it's just something, as I say, it's like pushing the furniture around in your own head. But it's amazing how that will give you a liberty to be able to interact with them and to recognize what they're still doing wrong, maybe. But you can feel safe in your own heart. You can feel love towards them. And you can progress in your relationship with them and do your own parenting well. If you're worried about what you're doing to your own kids, if you're doing that thinking, doing that worrying, you're probably doing a good job as a parent anyway. So that's the thing I wanted to say today. You're not your parents. You're not doomed. You can choose your course and you can still be a good parent regardless of how things are gone. So that's my thoughts for today.
Hey, John, really, really appreciate this. And I know, hey, people can get stuck in this space. Thanks for bringing some wisdom and some hope to the program today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Cheers.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.